Hello all, in the last session we have learned that how you can think of installing the Plotly in your system. Now in this session we have to learn how you can think of doing the entire setup of your Plotly in your system. Again, apart from doing the setup of your entire Plotly, there are a couple of additional modules that you have to import as well. So the first thing that I need is something known as my chart studio. So first and foremost, I have to import this. Then I can think of something crazy. So first and foremost, let's try to import this. Again, in order to import this, what I say is I can say, okay, let's imagine this is a chart studio in your system. Imagine this is chart studio in your system. And let's say in this package, again, in each and every package, there are attributes, there are functions that you can think of calling. So first and foremost, I will say, okay, whatever package you have, let's import that. So just to import that, you can think of using import keyword in your Python programming. I say, okay, import chart studio. This is the first thing that I have to do. Now, once I do that, imagine there is a function as f1. So if I have to call this function f1, I can say as, okay, chart underscore studio dot f1. And I have to use this small braces. And if there is a function as f2, I say as chart underscore studio dot f2. If there is a 100 function, I have to use the chart studio again and again. So instead of repeating this module name again and again, the better way is I will say, let's create a shortcut of this package. Let's say as py or let's say as pg, whatever it is. Let's say as py. So instead of saying as chart studio dot f1, I can say as py dot f1. Instead of saying as chart studio dot f2, I can say as py dot f2. So this is something that makes more sense than what you have written over here. So I will say as, okay, you have a package as chart underscore studio. The moment I press tab, look at this. These are all the packages. Let's select this. Now inside this package, I have to go in something, or you can say I have to go in a submodule often known as Plotly. The moment I press tab, look at this. This is a Plotly. Now let's create its alias. Let's say as py. Let me execute it using Alt plus Enter. Sounds good. Now you have to import the Plotly. I will say, okay, import Plotly. Now inside this Plotly, you have to go into some crazy submodules. Now let's understand what are those submodules. Again, some important ones are, there is something known as a Plotly Express. There is something known as a Plotly Express, which is extremely used. There is something known as a Plotly Graph Objects. There is something known as, again, just in a couple of seconds, just in a couple of minutes, we will have a look on what exactly is the difference between both, just in a couple of minutes. But let's first import that. So in order to import that, I will say import plotly dot, let's type gr and let's press tab over there. Look at this. We have graph underscore objs. Okay, this is that. Let's create its alias. Let's say go. Then again, I will say import plotly dot express. And let's create its alias as, let's say px. Let me just execute this line of code. Again, if you want to think it bluntly, this graph object has more customization properties than Plotly Express. And of course, there are some visualization that do exist in this, but do not exist in this. This is the basic difference between both. At the end of the day, both are doing the same task. But the basic difference is graph objects has more customization properties. Imagine there is a graph. So if you want to customize this graph, it's always good to go with a graph object instead of going with a Plotly Express. That's where your graph object is a winner. And again, let's first import some more other thing. So what I say, I can say, okay, from Plotly, okay, I say it's not Plotly, it's Plotly. Let's go inside a offline submodule, and from this, let's import something else. The first thing that I have to import is something known as download plotly.js. Let's import that. The another thing is my init notebook mode. Let's import that. The third one is my plot. Let's import that. The fourth is my iplot. Now let's understand all the things. Again, very first, let me just execute this line of code. And let me very first say as init notebook mode. Let's set a value of connected as true. And let's understand what the code is all about. Again, plot and iplot are typically used when you have to showcase your visualization in your IPython notebook. As we know that the Jupyter notebook on which we are running it on, it is exactly a IPython notebook. So in order to showcase your plotly visualization on top of this Jupyter notebook, you have to use something known as plot or iplot. Again, look at this. iplot is all about nothing but a IPython plot. And this again, download plotly.js and init notebook mode are typically used when you have to showcase your plotly visuals into your screen, or you can see into your Jupyter notebook, instead of showing in your web browser. Because the moment I do not use this line of code, probably the plotly chart gets shown in your web browser instead of your Jupyter notebook. That's why it is always good to have such line of code. I'm not saying it is mandatory, but it is always good to have this. Again, for those of you who are facing any kind of error, kindly have a look into the Q&A. So that's all about it. Thank you. Have a nice day. Keep learning, keep growing, keep practicing.